pmorgan tonight.
Good evening. Tonight, rising fears of a ground war in the Middle East. Today, Gaza was bombarded by Israeli missiles. Hamas rockets also rained down today near Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Israeli troops are massing at the border with the real possibility of a ground invasion imminently. The latest on the showdown in a moment. First, inside the capital, where General Petraeus testifies about Benghazi. The ex-CIA chief, brought down by an affair, says the classified intelligence showed it was a terrorist attack. He also said the suspected involvement of al-Qaeda was intentionally withheld because of fears of tipping off the terrorist group. Petraeus testified the CIA's talking points in response to the assault initially called it a terrorist attack, but that was edited out of the final version. And he said the change was not made for political reasons. Here with me now is Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger. He's a Democrat, ranking member of the House Select Committee on Intelligence. Welcome to you.
Good to be here, Piers.
So we now know from the White House, a statement that's come via the NSC spokesman, Tommy Veit, and I'll read it to you. The talking points about the intelligence assessment that Susan Rice used were produced by the intelligence community. The White House and State Department offered one edit, changing consulate to diplomatic facility for accuracy. So a pretty clear line being drawn there by the White House that they didn't change anything from the intelligence report that went to Susan Rice, other than how you named the consulate or diplomatic facility. What do you make of that?
Well, what is the issue that has been raised as a result of that? I think we all know that the intelligence community had created the talking points that did come out about the incident that occurred. The purpose for that basically was for the intelligence committees to make sure that any information or that they would give to the media would not be classified. And I think that's how a lot of these issues of the talking points started to begin with. I think the issue that's been raised in the last couple of days has been the issue of having al-Qaeda taken out of the talking points and putting extremists in there. My answer to that is that the analysts who would have made those different changes, you have the intelligence community who collects the information and then it's analyzed and then it's disseminated to whoever they give it to, the administration or us. What happened in that situation is that there's some who have said that by taking the word al-Qaeda out and putting extremists, that changed the content. I don't see it that way. I think extremist covers a lot of different individuals, not only terrorists, but people involved in the militias in Libya and other areas. But that has been a debate today.
Has General Petraeus' position changed from when he first appeared 3 days after the incident in Benghazi to now? Has he shifted? Because he seems to be conveying an impression now that he pretty much knew from the start it was probably a terror group, and probably this one that was named Ansar al-Sharia. And yet at the same time, he said there were lots of other reports flying around the intelligence community that it may have been connected to the video protests.
Well, first, let me say, I think his testimony today cleared up a lot of issues on both sides of the aisle. I think it was also important, as the director of the CIA at the time of the incident, it was important that he testified. I think it was important for our country, our intelligence community, and for General Petraeus and his family himself to bring some closure to the issues involving him. One of the issues was that a lot of people were putting out that, in fact, he resigned so he wouldn't have to testify about Benghazi. That's ridiculous. And he stated today that was not the case. So as far as what his comments were when he came to our committee 3 days after the event, he basically said, and this is what is out there now and has been debated a lot, that they thought that initially that it was a protest that was really stimulated by what happened in Egypt in the film. He also said at the same time, though, that they felt very strongly that there were terrorists involved, and they also said that they knew that that area of Benghazi was a hot spot, but there was no direct intelligence that there was going to be an attack that day.
The Republicans now say that there's clear line being drawn now. There was no protest. There were no one was at that Benghazi diplomatic facility who was a protester about that video. Can we say that for certain, or could it be that there were some protesters and there was also a planned attack because it was September the 11th?
Well, the first thing, Chairman Rogers and I decided not to subject ourselves to the media until we came back into session, because our job on the Intelligence Committee is to follow the facts and find out, what occurred. We oversee the intelligence community and we deal with issues of national security. And so that's clearly where our focus was as far as that is concerned. Now, what the general basically said at that time, that there was a terrorist situation and that there were people outside. if you look at the tapes and if you look at the information, that it was kind of a chaotic type of situation. We had looters who came in. We had people with weapons who were running around. It didn't seem to be any command and control. But that changed 3 hours later. When they went to the annex, all of a sudden you had a very sophisticated operation of terrorists who knew how to operate weaponry, who made direct hits, and that seemed to be clearly a terrorist attack. Now, you know, the issue is the films, and you can see the two situations occurring, especially the first attack, where it seemed to be chaotic, but they were attacking our consulate.
From everything, Congressman, you've now heard and gleaned, and from all the evidence today from General Petraeus, it seems to me that there's a collective view that Ambassador Rice really acted in good faith. I mean, she was repeating what she had been told by the intelligence community with no interference, it appears, from the White House other than the name of this facility. And she was simply repeating what she'd been told.
Well, that's what my understanding is, but again, we have to follow the facts. She had been given information, just the same information that our intelligence community had been given, and that's what she testified to. It's the same issue that occurred with General Colin Powell when we dealt with the issue. When he went before the United Nations, he had information. There were weapons of mass destruction, which they were not. So these situations occur all the time. But as far as Ambassador Rice is concerned, you know, I don't know enough about the things she said other than what I've read, and I think that hopefully she was acting in good faith, and she will be judged on her reputation and the job that she has done. I think that President Obama got it right when he said she received information from my administration, and if you have an issue with what she said, then you come to me. And I think he's right. He's accepting responsibility as the president as far as this issue is concerned. You know, we have to move on. We know that there's some issues involving Benghazi, and the most unfortunate thing is that we've lost 4 lives. And I wanted to focus on, number one, you know, why this happened, how did it occur, how to make sure it doesn't occur in the future, did we have the security that was requested? These are the issues that we now need to start focusing on, and to make sure that we can protect our people who work for the State Department or for the United States in hotspots throughout the world. The highest priority is to protect their lives in the future.
Congressman, thank you very much for joining me.
Okay, got it.
My next guest has known General Petraeus and Paula Broadwell for 15 years. Tom Ricks is the author of the new book, The Generals, and he joins me now. Welcome, Mr. Ricks.
Thank you.
You say at the start of this book, there are no bad soldiers, only bad generals. Many people have taken a pretty dim view of General Petraeus's conduct, but where do you position him in terms of his legacy as a general?
One of the saddest aspects of this entire mess is that Petraeus actually was one of our best generals in recent years. What bothers me as a nation is we're paying a lot more attention to the sex lives of our generals than to the real lives of our soldiers. We had a bunch of mediocre generals in Iraq. Tommy Franks, Ricardo Sanchez, George Casey. Petraeus went in and got the United States out of the war in Iraq, and for that the nation owes him a great debt. Yet we seem to have forgotten all his combat tours, and we're focusing on aspects of his private life. What I say in my new book is we really need to focus much more on high standards of professional duty. I would much rather have an excellent general who has slept around a little bit than a mediocre general who kept his pants on.
The hearings that went on today seem to have vindicated him in many ways. He was remarkably composed, given all he's been through in the last week. Very forensic about the detail, clarified a lot of things, and at the end of the day, sort of cleared up, I think, a lot of the issues surrounding the Benghazi incident, not pretending there hadn't been mistakes made, but certainly there didn't appear to be some sort of conspiracy going on. Was that your reading of it?
Yeah, pretty much, but I never thought there was a conspiracy. I always thought that Fox News had kind of gone wacko on this and was stirring up a lot of anxiety about a bad situation in which a lot of things are inherently unknowable. I have tried to report several times through the years on firefights and incidents of combat. There is nothing more complex. You will always find conflicting stories. That does not mean that people are lying. It simply means that combat is one of the most stressful things anybody can go through.
Where do you think General Petraeus ranks as a general, say, in the last 100 years?
I think he'd be remembered a lot like Matthew Ridgway, which is to say pretty much not at all except by the experts. He's a very good general. He's a real standout. He's an exception in being not only a successful general in Iraq, but also he understands generalship in a way that a lot of our generals don't. A critical thinker who's able to understand the situation, adjust to it, and get thousands of people to carry out a different sort of orders. That's what a general does. The reason I compare him to Matthew Ridgway, though, is Ridgway was a great general in the Korean War who did exactly that same sort of thing, but is kind of forgotten except by the specialist and the military buffs who reads books like mine.
The Paula Broadwell book that came out about General Petraeus, did you like that as a historian?
I had introduced Paula actually to my book editor. I do that with a lot of people who say they've got a book in mind. I said, well, here, talk to my editor. And she was one of the many over the years. I did blurb it, and I think I wrote something like, this is a unique view of General Petraeus. It feels like we're reading his emails. A blurb that's come back to haunt me a little.
The prescient, yeah. I mean, I've been talking about this a lot this week, but on this theory that a general or political leader's sex life really should be immaterial unless it adversely affects his job. Of course, the converse argument is, well, if he's got enough time for conducting a clandestine affair, can he really dedicate himself to the job in hand? What do you think of that?
What I think is that spies are probably like soldiers. They're not going to really concern themselves with the private life of their commander. What soldiers want in battle, in a war, is one thing. They want to survive. It's a legitimate request to want to survive. They will forgive a lot. Alcoholic leaders, racist leaders, pure sons of bitches like George Patton. If they are feeling well led, if they're feeling this guy is giving them a chance of surviving the war. And so somebody like Petraeus actually, I think, inspired troops. Hey, this guy will get us through. And if he doesn't, if I die in this war, at least my life won't have been thrown away by some blowhard, know-nothing general.
Tom Ricks, The Generals, is out now. American Military Command from World War II to today. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
You're welcome.